it's a code.
Right for the lot. But it's not a property spot. It's like a parking spot.
Somebody drop a break.
Okay, you can still put it on site. Yeah.
Everyone can find their seats. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming tonight. Mayor Nathaniel George Booker, Village of Maywood, we invited the Board of Review out to have a conversation with us in regards to a tax appeal process that the Board of Review does. A few weeks ago, we had the assessor's office that came to talk about exemptions and the appeal process for their appeals. Their appeal process ended about 8 days ago. So now we're focusing on the Board of Review process. So it's two different processes that residents can go through in regards to processing your tax appeals on your property, due your property tax rate. If you feel that it is an error, I am going to turn this over to the Board of Review. Unfortunately, Mr. Larry Rogers, who is our commissioner for the 3rd District, couldn't be with us here tonight, but he has replaced us with his lovely liaison, Ms. Lola Jenkins. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jenkins.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me pretty clearly?
Here's the mic.
One piece before, because anybody needs Spanish translation. No? Okay. No translation?
Spanish translation.
If you need it, you can come on right over here and get you some help with the translation. So we also have with us the Palazzo Township that helps assist, if anybody knows where their office is in Hillside. So they can also assist with tax exemptions as well as appeals. That's also the translation assistance.
I just had what I think is a quick question. Even though the other process is already expired, I was told that you still could do it online.
You could do the Board of Review appeal process online, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, but you can't process the assessor's office appeals anymore. That's closed. You can still process exemptions though. So with exemptions, if you haven't filed for your exemptions, you can do that. You can go 3 years back.
So that's the last part again?
You can go 3 years back. So 4 years.
I see.
Well, I'll walk around a little bit just to make sure everybody can hear me clearly. Okay. My name is Lola Jenkins, and I'm with the Board of Review. And on behalf of Commissioner Larry Rogers Jr., just want to welcome you all this evening to the Cook County Board of Review Property Tax Appeal Forum. Okay. I know you all have a lot of questions, and I'm going to do my best to get through this so we can get straight to your questions. All right. So there are a few reasons why you might want to file an appeal. The first is that you might have a property assessment that you feel is too high. You also might have recently just purchased a property, or you might have just had an appraisal done on your property. You also might have a property that's currently vacant, or you might have sustained damage to your property from either flood or any type of water damage or fire. Or in some cases, some people have properties that they have demolished, meaning they want to rebuild their structure or, just have something to do with it. So there's the property tax cycle from Cook County. And just so you all can know a little bit about each department, as the mayor touched on previously, of who does what, right? So you got the Cook County assessor, and they determine your market value of your property, and it's usually your first place that you go to if you have an appeal that you want to file. You also have the board of review, and what the board of review does is if you're unhappy with the assessment or lack thereof with the Cook County Assessor's Office, we can come in and look at it with the second lens and say, hey, maybe this property was overassessed, or maybe not. And then you've got the Illinois Department of Revenue, and they pretty much determine the equalization factor for your property. Then you've got the local governments who are in charge of assessing individual taxes, like the fire department, your school districts, and things of that nature. Then you've got the Cook County Clerk's Office, who determine the tax rates and essentially send out your tax bills. And now you've got the Cook County Treasurer, who is in charge of collecting those payments. So the Cook County Assessor's Office, if you want to file an appeal or learn more about the exemptions that are available to you, you want to make sure you visit their website, which is cookcountyassessor.com, and this is their direct phone number. Now, sometimes people like to take a picture of these slides just so you can keep their contact information kind of readily available. And if you would like to do so, you can do so now. But again, if you would like to learn more information about the exemptions that you qualify for, or if you would like to file a certificate of error, you can visit their website. So in this process, you want to make sure that everyone has every exemption that they may qualify for, okay? So when you go to the Cook County Assessor's website, you can click on exemptions, and there'll be a drop-down menu that can give you a little bit more insight about the exemptions that you may qualify for. But some of the most, familiar and most common exemptions are the general homestead exemption, and this is just for any homeowner. And you also have your senior citizens exemption, and that's for anyone who is age 65 or older. And then you've got the senior freeze, and that's for people who are 65 or older who have an income of $65,000 or less. And that $65,000 is the general and overall household income. So if it's you and your spouse, that's the household, then both of you all have to collectively generate less than $65,000. Even if you have your children living with you or any other siblings that might be contributing to your household, that's how they calculate the $65,000. So there's been several cases where people you have to also apply for that one every year. The senior exemption, once you hit 65, you're kind of good to go, and it reapplies automatically. But the senior freeze has to be applied annually because it's based on your annual household income. So with all of these, the residence has to be your primary residence. It cannot be an income property that you receive these exemptions on. And one key thing is that you also have to be 65 years of age at the start of the year. So if you turn 65 in December, you wouldn't qualify for that year. You would have to wait until the following year, starting January 1, and then you would qualify for either one, the senior exemption or the senior freeze. So there are additional exemptions that the Cook County Assessor's Office offers, and those are for veterans, the returning veterans exemption, disabled veterans exemption, and the disabled persons exemption. And you can learn more about those and if you qualify for it via the Cook County Assessor's website. And again, this is their contact information and website. So this is essentially the meat and potatoes of the presentation. Most people are wondering, how is your property tax bill calculated? Okay? And so in this example here, we've got a property that's valued at $250,000. And so what happens is that there is the initial Cook County assessment, which is the only amount that the Board of Review touches, which is 10%. So the estimated market value is multiplied by that 10% to get a proposed assessed valuation of $25,000. Once we get that amount, We then multiply that by the state equalizer, which changes annually. Right now, it's currently at 3.0163%. Once that's calculated, you get an equalized assessed value of $75,408. Right? So then now your exemptions begin to come in play. So if you just have your regular homestead exemption, that's when they'll deduct the $10,000, and now you're at $65,408. Now they come back and multiply that by the saleable tax rate, which varies, right, per township. For here it's 21%, which gives you a total estimated tax bill of $13,735.68. So overall throughout Cook County, that tax rate varies. As you can see, Park Forest has an exceptionally high rate of 43.312%. Glenview has a moderate rate along with Chicago of 7.40%, and Wilmette the same as well as Northfield. But the thing that separates the townships is the infrastructure. So Chicago, of course, has a lot of businesses and has pretty much one of the lower rates at 7.035%. So let's talk a little bit about your property tax bill. I don't know if any of you all have your bill with you tonight. If you do, you can take it out and kind of follow along with us. So if you have ever appealed with the Board of Review and you received a reduction, I know you might be looking for it. So where's my savings that I don't see it, right? It will not appear on your first installment bill. Okay. The Board of Reviews, any changes that were granted will be reflected in your second installment bill. Okay. So your first installment consists of 55% of the tax debt that is owed for the year. And then the remaining 45 will be seen on your second installment bill. So in that second installment bill, this is your most important bill. When you receive your bill, you want to make sure that all the information at the top is accurate. You want to make sure that your classification is consistent with your property. You also want to make sure that your codes as well as your PIN numbers and everything is accurate. You want to make sure your address is accurate. I know it sounds like, what is that? Why am I verifying that? But you would be surprised how many property tax bills sometimes are inaccurate. Okay. And then you also want to look at the section. If you want to know more about where your money goes, you have done a great job this time of itemizing where exactly money from your bill was spent. But the most important part is the tax calculator, which is what we just went through. You want to take the time and make sure that the calculations are correct. Okay? So if you received a senior freeze or senior exemption, or just you want to make sure that it's on the veterans, you want to make sure that it's on. And you want to actually take the time and calculate the figures on your own. We've been seeing recently that some of the tax bills have been incorrect, and the calculations have been incorrect, right? And then you also want to make sure you check for important messages. So anything in association with your PIN number will be listed in the important messages section. So for an example, when you check for your exemption areas, in our example here, there was a deduction for a homeowner's exemption, and they were due to receive equal to 10,000 times the local tax rate. But the taxpayer, they should have received that rate of 10,000 times 0.0662%, which would have been a deduction of $626.20. However, they only received an exemption of $25.67. So this is what I mean by you want to make sure that the calculations are correct, because it could be just gross oversight or negligence. However, you would miss the savings of $600.53. So you want to make sure you're looking at that information. So the Cook County Board of Review, for those who don't know, we're located at 118 North Clark Street in room 601. And We also have a website, which is cookcountyboardofreview.com. And if you want to reach out to Commissioner Larry Rogers' office directly, you can reach us at 312-603-5540. Please feel free to take a picture of that if you like. It is also on your information, but it's not an automated system. A live person does answer during business hours. So if you have any questions, make sure you dial that number. Sure. 312-603-5540.
Are you taking questions as you go?
Nope, I'm taking questions at the end. Oh, we're almost there. No worries. So if you're going to file a form tonight, you might have got to a question that said, or do you plan to file any evidence? Right? So if you want to file evidence for your residential appeal, like there's different types of appeals you can file. So you might be filing for a comparable property, which is uniformity appeal, meaning you want to compare your property to other properties in your immediate area. So we're looking at properties who are similar in square footage, within the same classification as your property, and also within the same neighborhood. Or you might be looking at a comparable sales method, meaning if you are on a block and you know that a few homes have gone up for sale in your immediate area or are currently sold at a lesser value than what your property is being valued at, then you want to do a comparative sales approach. Or if you've had a vacancy, or like we talked about earlier, a flood or any damage as an act of God that you would like to submit information about to say, hey, my property isn't worth this because I've had significant damage, then you want to make sure if it's a vacancy that you file a vacancy affidavit form. Okay? And that form just pretty much gives you an opportunity to highlight the months in which the property was vacant and gives a full analysis of how vacant or percentage of vacancy the property is. And if you received any damage, I know a lot of people last July had quite a bit of damage with the torrential rains that happened. So if you filed an appeal or a claim with FEMA or SBA or your insurance company, that's the type of supporting documentation you want to submit with your appeal. But if you have any pictures you plan to submit, make sure those pictures are time and date stamped. So if you use your cell phone like most of us do to capture the damage, you want to make sure that you put the feature on that allows you to do the time and date stamp. But you also want to make sure you highlight the damage to the actual structure of the property, not necessarily your goods that were damaged or items that were lost. So if you had sheetrock or anything like that in your photos that show like the water height or things of that nature and that the sheetrock had to be replaced or things of that, that's what you want to showcase. And if you're going to submit this documentation in regards to similar properties or properties that were for sale, if you include that with your appeal, make sure you add the address as well as the PIN number associated with the property. So if you are filing an appeal for commercial properties, and that means that the commercial property is not within your name, if it's within a business name, according to Board of Review Rule number 1, you have to have an attorney file that appeal on your behalf. And if it's an owner-occupied property, we need an appraisal that has been completed within the last 3 years. And if it's a leased property, make sure you include your rent roll or any lease agreements for the last 3 years, along with your IRS Schedule E, as well as pictures of the property. And if it's vacant as well, include pictures of the vacancy with that vacancy affidavit. If you live in a condo appeals are pretty much based on recent sales within the condo structure. And those sales are all based on the last 3 years. But if you're living in a condo, I know sometimes some of the condo structures have maybe 4 units or less, then that's when we'll use a uniformity assessment versus sales, because typically there wouldn't be any sales within the most recent 3 years. So there are a few things that you should know. And they are that each township is open for 30 days. And once that time is passed, the Board of Review no longer accepts appeals for that township. There are 3 commissioners that have staff that review their case. And in order for you to win an appeal, 2 of the 3 analysts that view it have to agree. Okay. The process usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks once you submit your appeal, and then your results are mailed to you via U.S. mail. And again, any changes, if you receive the reduction, will be reflected in your second installment bill. So these are the townships that are currently open: Cicero, Elk Grove, Stickney, West Chicago, and Barrington. So if you know anyone within those townships, give them a friendly reminder, that they've got until today at midnight to submit that appeal. And if you're going to file tonight, and they're going to do it online, you want to make sure that they start before 11:30. That's when the clock runs at 11:59. That is it. And these are the list of townships that have recently closed. So everyone should have received an appeal form this evening. If not, we've got some people. Raise your hand and someone will bring it around to you. But in the appeal form, there are a few things that we want to make sure that you fill out. So of course, if you have the property index number, you want to fill it in here. But if you do not have it with you tonight, don't worry about it. Don't dig for it. We'll find it. Just want to make sure that you fill out the information in association with the property correctly. And if you do have your PIN number and you put it in, that's great. And if you have additional pins associated with that one, I know some addresses have 2 or 3 pins associated with it, you want to list those additional pins right there that associated with that one. But then you'll fill this information out here with your name, your address, city phone number, and email address of the best information of where to be contacted. And this is your contact information, not necessarily the address of the property. I know some people are inquiring about investment properties and things of that nature. And if that's the case, then you would put that information right here where it says address. Above that circle I just highlighted, that you would put the address of the property in question there. But if this is your home address that you are inquiring about, make sure you click same as above so we know that this is the same address of where to contact you as the property. Make sure you indicate the description of the property, whether it was a single family or if it's a condo, so on and so forth, if it's a vacant land or not. And then if you have the year purchase and the amount, if you remember, please indicate it here. If not, no worries, it doesn't have to be there. And then let us know your relationship to the property. If you're the owner or you're the beneficiary of the trust or so on. And then if you plan to submit any additional evidence, you would click mark yes or no. You do not have to submit evidence, just so you know. It's just an option. I know sometimes people have property that they're well aware of on their block. Like I know for sure I've got the same square footage as my neighbor. We've got same faces and they're significantly lower than mine. And you want to pay special attention to that property, then you can submit that. But unless it's something like that, you do not have to submit comparable properties for your appeal. And if you would like to have a hearing with the board review, make sure you check this box here. Some people just want to have an opportunity to speak with someone to let them know how they're feeling or express their grievances in regards to the property. And you can click, yes, but it's not necessary as well. You don't have to have a hearing. But most importantly, I need you to sign it. If you don't sign it, it's not a valid one, unfortunately.
Would it be under?
No, just a signature. So if you plan to file online, and for those of you who are here who have friends that want to file and their deadline is this evening, pay attention to this, okay? So you can file online at cookcountyboardofreview.com. And once you get to the website, you're going to click File an Appeal. Then you want to click Submit an Appeal. Once you do that, you'll be brought to this screen and you'll be prompted. I would recommend you log in and register. Do not file it as a guest. If you want to be able to upload documentation or go back in at a later date, you want to create a login password. So make make sure you click log in and register and begin the process that way. Once you do that, you'll click My Appeals and then Submit an Appeal. When you get to this screen, you'll be presented with a drop-down, and then you can select the type of appeal you would like to have. So this one is for property that's being over-assessed. You'll type in your PIN number and click Next. And then after that, you're done. It's just that simple. Right? Now, if you have any technical difficulties while you're filing the appeal, you can click on the left-hand side, click here, and any information in terms of help or assistance while filing an appeal online can be filed there. So this is a list of upcoming events that are hosted by Commissioner Larry Rogers. We've got some virtual Zooms that are occurring pretty soon. We've got, I know, Bloom Township is tomorrow. Lake Township is coming up. Orland, Thornton, South Chicago, Rich Township. So these, the Zooms are South Chicago Township, Rich, Thornton, and Lake. I see someone taking a photo, so we'll hold on. So again, I want everybody to take a picture of this screen. Save our number. This number is important. 872-345-4747. Again, that's 872-345-4747. Commissioner Larry Rogers has tried his best to make sure that everyone has access to filing an appeal and to make it as easy as possible. I know a lot of us are using our mobile device to handle most of our businesses, and long gone are the days of PCs. So if you text the word file to that number, you'll be sent a mobile application form to file your appeal. And this works especially if you have any of the supporting documentation we just talked about, like photos or anything like that, loaded to your mobile device. It just makes it easier for you to just attach those documents that way. And if you want any more information about any of the community events that are coming up, you can text EZ Join to that same number, and you'll be a part of the 3rd District's messaging system. So again, our number is 312-603-5540. And if you're having technical difficulty online and you need to maybe reset your password or anything like that, you can contact tech support directly at 312-603-5542. Or you can email us directly at BOR-District3@cookcountyil.gov. And someone does respond to those email messages and they do their best to kind of have a quick turnaround. So now we're at the good part. Got any questions? Okay.
So when you put the form up, and you were saying check those numbers across the top, and you were saying check the classification number, check the code number, blah, blah, blah. What do you check that?
Like when you purchase your home might have been classified as like, you might have had a lower level living area, or you might have had a dual deck, or each style home has its own classification. So you want to make sure that your style home is matched with the classification that the county specifies.
I think she's asking, how do you know if it's right or not? So if you go on the assessor's website, they have a list of the property classifications. So, like there's a drop down and it'll show every property classification and what those, what the criteria are. So if it is 1,800 square feet or less, up to 62 years, or if it's this many years and this many feet. So I would check on the assessor's website.
Two questions. First one, is there any way you can get access to that presentation?
It is not eligible to be emailed or anything like that, but if you'd like to see it again, you can definitely catch it via Zoom, and you might be able to see it.
The second question is, I think you put up some municipalities, their deadline was midnight When is the deadline?
Yes.
You mentioned that there was a refund, you said, we are, excuse me, you said a refund, we are the first installment or the second installment?
The second installment.
It would be at the second. So, and we already got a second installment bill, and we out the bill now.
It would be that following.
It would be following, okay. And they'll, I already know, like, this will be a letter.
Yes, so if you filed with the board review and you were successful in receiving a reduction, you'll receive a letter.
And this here is the same, it's filed with the board.
Yes, that's our, in paper form of it here.
Okay. And then we'll get over, I will see it if you call.
Right, so any township, like if you file tonight for it, if your township is not open, you can still leave the form with us this evening. And so what happens is that we just hold on to it until it opens. And when the township opens, that's when we file.
Probably too early for 2024 tax season. When can I file for veterans disability?
That's handled through the Cook County Assessor's Office. So I would advise you to go to their website and go to the exemptions tab and pull down the exemption that you're looking for, and it should give you all the details on when. Yes.
Where can I find my permanent index copy?
You can find it on the Cook County Assessor's website by your address. It should pop up. Just do a search for it. Oh, okay, he's checking. Okay. Yes.
So the 65 bus exemption, who qualifies for it? Is it based on income also?
No, so there's two different exemptions for seniors. One is just the regular senior exemption, which is for anyone who is 65 or older.
What disqualifies them?
Nothing. Now, the senior freeze is the exemption that income is. But any senior 65 and older is eligible for that. As long as you live, provided that you live in the property, yes.
So you have to apply for freeze every year?
Yes.
What, so when do we apply for?
It's usually done at the top of the year through the Cook County Assessors.
January? And one more question. So if you make 65 in December, you can get the senior freeze?
For that following year.
Yeah, and you have to apply in April.
Now that is what I'm uncertain about. I would need to check that. That's sure. Okay. You have this
It's
ready.
about December, and I told you apply
In April.
apply in April, and I freeze the
One.
That was on the safest stuff.
Thank you.
Your assessor's office and your side, what all do they do for you?
I'm familiar with all of what they do.
We have someone else.
I'm sorry. No problem.
She's asked about what is the provider assessor's office involved.
We can help you there with filing appeals, you can pre-file with the board of review. Right now, we don't know when that appeal is officially open, but you can pre-file. So you can pre-file right now, so you won't have some date to file. We can also help you with certificate of errors, applying for any exemptions that you want.
I just went there last Monday, and they told me they couldn't help me with anything. I went there for a bill. They said Maywood was closed. You talking about right there on Harrison? And yeah, I just was at your office there.
When were you there?
I was just there Monday. No, I'm sorry. I was there Tuesday morning, and they said Maywood had closed Monday. So she said it was nothing that she could do. So
Once appeals are closed, we can't.
okay, so what was you just saying?
So if you haven't filed with the board of review, we can help you with that. But but as far as with the appeal with the assessors,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that. Once
So they're two
closed-
separate offices, and I think that's where some of the confusion happens at. So you've got the Cook County Assessor's Office.
Right.
The assessor's office is closed for
Yes.
proviso.
Okay.
There's two
The actual
appeals.
board of review meeting that we're having tonight is not the assessor's office that closed on September 16th.
Okay.
This meeting is to basically say you can start pre-filing so that when the board of review process for appeals does come up, you'll already have that paperwork on file to be able to get processed.
There's no date for,
Yeah, it's not in this.
the end. This is just
Oh.
pre-filing stage right now.
It's
Okay.
not in this.
Okay.
So,
And then you can still also do a certificate of error for your exemptions that you didn't apply for in previous years.
so, so I filed for an appeal with the assessor's office prior to the Monday, the 16th. So the board of review process, this is not open for that. Is that
So it's two
correct?
separate appeal processes, and you can file for both. So I don't want you to feel like
Okay.
if you do one, you can't do the other.
Okay.
You can do both. So the assessor's office has their own, operation in terms of how they do appeals. The board of review is just pretty much a last-ditch effort in terms of finding uniformity for your properties. So if you feel as though, for some people, typically, they filed with the assessor's office, they felt as though they weren't granted a reduction and they deserved it, and they say, hey, can the board of review look at this? Can you reassess it to see if this is accurate or not, right? But you can do both appeal processes. One does not negate the other.
Okay. Another question. So, in my case, I did not receive my reassessment for last year. So when I received the bill, it was like, whoa. So obviously, there was a window that closed in October. There was nothing that the assessor's office could do. I then went to the Board of Review's office, did something online there. I'm a little confused about when that actual application that I filed in July,
You just did it just July?
Yes.
Okay.
am I duplicating my efforts if I file?
No, so if there was overlap or crossover, they'll figure that out and, and they'll just X out the one and you'll still, So you should be fine. If you feel like you might have done a duplication, it'll be okay. They'll cancel it out, yeah.
So if there was an error made on your taxes, would they assess it from this meeting, or would you have to wait till?
No, so if you feel like, in terms of like, there were a previous year, or what do you mean? Like,
So a previous year, you were approved, they say there was an error
okay,
and corrected, but then they came back
yes.
and placed it back on you, and you appeal, would that take place during this assessment, or would you have to wait?
I don't think I understand. So you're saying you received a reduction,
Yeah.
and then you were reassessed and it's back higher. Is that what you're saying? Okay. So then you would file another appeal.
So would it be tonight, or?
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, if you want to do another appeal with the assessor's office as well, that, of course, that's what we're talking about, that period for appeals has closed. But when it reopens, you would probably want to do that as well.
Okay, but tonight, we don't know when that time is. We don't know that date when it will open.
Well, tonight you can leave it, so whenever it does open, you would have already pre-filed.
Okay.
So this is more, so we're just getting on the front end of it to say, hey, whenever your township does open, we would have already had your appeal.
In order to file for the Board of Review, you have to first file an appeal. Is that right or wrong?
I'm sorry.
In order to file for the Board of Review, which
Yes.
is tonight,
Yes.
you had to have first filed an appeal.
No.
No.
You're filing an appeal tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's like, I heard you say second ditch. So it's the second ditch effort
Well, no,
in
so
case you
basically,
didn't.
so some people come to the Board of Review because they're dissatisfied with the assessor's office. Some people automatically just go straight to the Board of Review. Either way, it's an opportunity to have, your property looked at from a different lens. It's a completely different office. Yep. Yes.
Typically, what does a senior exemption look like? In a way of a dollar amount, if you could say that. Yeah, no, like.
It's based on calculation, so yeah, I couldn't speak to that.
You gave a percentage earlier for the homeowner's exemption, dollar calculation, and it all depends on what property.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You gave a percentage earlier for the homeowner's exemption calculation. What is that?
For the homeowner's exemption? Oh, those were just sample percentages. It's pretty much based upon like the township, partnership, all that. Yeah.
Okay. I filed, and I filed senior free, and it's based on Maywood. The income tax return hadn't counted an exemption, so the return was amended. So before, I didn't qualify because it hadn't counted the exemption. And I filed.
That's an assessor's question because we're the office that handles all the exemptions. So the Board of Review pretty much only accounts for that 10% that's assessed to your property. We don't pretty much touch any other exemptions or anything like that. It all has to go through the assessor's office. Any other questions, general questions? If you have something more specific that you would like to ask, got a few of my comrades around, I can tell you Daniqua's right there, and Ernest, or you can have Ricardo outside, assist you with filing the appeal, if you have any other questions.
With the senior freeze, do the seniors not pay any taxes on their home?
No.
They do pay some?
They do pay significantly.
I always thought they didn't pay any, I wasn't sure.
Very, yeah.
Just checking.
Okay.
I'm almost there.
I have a question about the other properties, like if you're saying you have, for example, 3 bathrooms, and you only have 2, where does it go?
The assessor's office. So that's what happens. So if you feel like you are improperly assessed, like if you filed with the assessor's office online, like when it was open, you can be able to check your classifications and know if you want to file an appeal because you're not assessed properly, and then they'll ask you, like, well, what does your property currently have? So you can check if they have you as 3 bedrooms or in 2 baths and you only have 1 bath, you can check that.
So that's the only time you can do it is when it's open?
Well, there is another, that's something separate because you're looking for just overall property that's been miscategorized.
Right.
So I think that you can file that at any time. It's really when you're trying to file an appeal for reduction that they have an open period. But if your property's been miscategorized, that's something different.
Okay, and then once they grant your appeal, how long does it take for them to send you a letter notifying you it's been granted?
I'm not familiar with the assessor's office, but with the Board of Review, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks once the appeal is gone.
Okay, so I can just call them and find out. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not certain on your time.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I know people are leaving, but on behalf of Commissioner Larry Rogers, I just want to thank you guys for coming out tonight. I know it was raining and not optimal conditions, but thanks for coming out. I was sad, yeah.
But as it relates to your township in particular, I'm not sure how that provides it. I think it does robocalls or emails. I'm not sure. I think it
There's another meeting coming here? Go.
Say it's how long.
Did we learn anything? We did. It's all good.
Somebody went in,
my water main work, so we can go to the area and get out to the blocks. It's just another
That's what she said. Don't touch it. Because say for instance, if you're sleeping free, it's just the they froze it in there, right? So that's it. They reassess it. Now you might be reassessed on the Now you've seen it before. It's been $100,000 difference because of the market. So she's saying, she's trying to go through, don't touch it. Don't touch it. She uses classifications because they're assessing you. They might be actually assessing higher square footage than you. That's something different. Especially if it's
So even if you get $2,000 reduction, like she
yeah, she's right. So when you look at it, you can see that the home technology is higher value. We just value the right, so we yeah, so you got to talk to the assessor's office to do a reclassification. No, you can like I just said, when you see that everything else, you're not going to change your taxes.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a free file state, so if you this will go in the system.